Welcome to my garden. This is Nathan Lawrence. A beautiful autumn day here in Northwest Oregon, and the heavens have opened up and are shining a spotlight on the beautiful fall colors around me here in my Sukashi Japanese garden. So this time a little short tour of the garden to look at the beautiful fall colors like the Sangukaku, Acer palmatum, Japanese maple that I have, coral bark maple that I have behind me right now. Makes a great backdrop. There's nothing like morning light, a fresh new day. The sun shining, the sky's blue, and then the fall colors. They're beautiful until the leaves start dropping and the rain starts and the mess begins. But in the meantime, savor the moment. Enjoy the beauty that nature and nature's God has to offer in the fall. For those of us that live in the northern climates where we have distinct seasons year-round, and enjoy these beautiful fall colors here. This is a coral bark maple, Sangukaku, one of my favorite trees in the garden. The bark turns bright red in the fall as the chlorophylls descend into the roots to be stored for over the winter for spring. So I wanted to make this video to give you kind of an update of some things that have been going on in my garden. My garden is always kind of in a state of transition. I've got the permanent things, but then sometimes I move things around, and I'm always pruning multiple times a year, every plant, to keep things exactly the way I want. But I've also made some additions to the garden, and so we'll highlight those in a little bit, because I get ideas as I visit Japanese gardens here and there. So I redo things or add things or subtract things. Same thing with plants. I see plants that I like and I want to add them to the yard, to the garden, and even though I don't have room. One of these plant addicts, so those of you who are like that, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, as you can see, I'm wearing a little different garb. This is a kimono, and I saw it. I was just recently on a trip on the East Coast in the Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. I wanted to visit the Murakami Japanese garden there in just north of Fort Lauderdale in the Boca Raton area. And this is an amazing garden, one of the top 10 Japanese gardens in North America, and designed by my hero, if you will, Huichi Kurisu, who is recognized as one of, if not the top Japanese garden designer in North America. And 4 or 5 of the top gardens in North America were designed by him. The Portland Japanese Garden, the Anderson Japanese Garden in, was it Rockford, Illinois, the Frederick Meyer Japanese Garden in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the Murakami Japanese Garden in Boca Raton area of Florida. And there's other ones too, but these are top Japanese gardens, been designed by Huichi Kurisu, who I had the privilege of meeting. He actually lives in my area, and I have worked next door to his house for a client of mine, and I got a chance to meet him after 40 years of knowing about him and 30 years working in his gardens that he has designed, private gardens for people in our area. And I got a chance to meet and interview him back in the spring of 2024 this year, and you can see that video that I made on this YouTube channel. Scroll back a little bit, but he is an absolute, I believe, a national treasure, and I have all the respect in the world for him. So I went through, spent about 4 hours with my wife going through this, the garden there, the Murakami Japanese garden, and that garden is unique in that it is designed to reflect the various eras of Japanese garden design over the last, well, since about the 7th and 8th centuries, and sweeping all the way through to the modern era, the 19th century into the 20th century, the various aspects and influences of Japanese garden design. And I'm no expert on that, so I don't want to talk about things I don't know very much about. But it is interesting to see, I will say this, it's interesting to see how the Japanese gardens, there's no one style or type of Japanese garden per se. Like everything, Japanese garden design has been influenced by influences Chinese, Buddhist, Zen Buddhist, Shinto, prehistoric Japanese traditions, as well as Western influences once Japan opened up to the West a little bit more in the 19th century, and as well as various social trends that have happened in Japan, as well as who was the ruling elite at the time in Japan, whether it was the emperor or the shogun and the various warlords, the samurai, these guys. All of these things had influences on the Japanese garden design and how, you know, how they were put together. So you have some that are more minimalistic, some that are more crowded, some that are emphasize rocks and the karasansui, the dry stream bed, which people call, and dry rock gardens, and that people call Zen gardens. Some emphasize water features more, ponds and lakes and streams and that kind of thing. Some are, again, more minimalistic. Some are more natural in the way they prune their plants. Some are more stylized and shaped. And there's all different influences. All of them, most of them have several things in common. They have the pine trees, the rocks, and maybe water flowing through them, and maybe some other non-natural elements such as Japanese lanterns and these kinds of things. But anyway, it got me thinking, well, what style is my Japanese garden? Is mine really a true Japanese garden? What is a true Japanese garden? Some people say, you really don't have a true Japanese garden. It's a Japanese style garden. Well, I don't have a problem with that. It's my garden. It reflects who I am. And let me just say, I'm not a neophyte when it comes to landscaping. Although I've been an arborist with a tree care company for 40 years, I have always done pruning. I've been pruning, aesthetic pruning, which is my specialty, for 50 years or more. So, I've been an aesthetic pruner working in very, very, normal type gardens to very, very high-end type gardens. Work for a lot of people that are very wealthy and have estates and mansions, as well as regular people that more like me. So I have a wide range of clientele. I grew up in the landscaping business. My dad was a very, very good landscape designer from the early 1960s on, and he was influenced by a more naturalistic style of landscaping that you will find in the Pacific Northwest of Oregon and Washington, the western valleys and coastal areas. And so I grew up around that kind of style of landscaping and of aesthetic pruning. So this is what my landscape represents, and as I travel around, it represents the plant material from our area and the things that we as Oregonians and Pacific Northwesterners, it's our style. Japanese gardens take on the style and the flair of the artist who's interpreting and designing the Japanese garden, as well as the plant material in that garden. But as I have designed my own Japanese style garden, I am informed by various elements of Japanese garden design style. So I'm just walking around through my Torii gate. This is my own version of the gate that really, this is my backyard. I've got the Japanese garden in my front yard, but the backyard is my main sanctuary, if you will, in my backyard, in my garden, and this is where I spend most of my time. And as you can see, I've added some things. I've added some mosses, and I've added moss here and here, more mosses, and I added additional flagstones. I had some, but I've added more flagstones. I wanted to break up this this rock work, these steps that I had. So I got some big flagstones to just make it a little more interesting. Now, I've been busy redeeming some of the areas of my Japanese garden that were not very well developed, and I'm not finished here. So we have the stone border that I put here out of old stepping stones that I used, recovered from other places, and this goes around to the south side of my house, and we've got a bamboo hedge here. This is the kind of bamboo that does not spread very quickly. It's the non-invasive type, and I'm turning this into a hedge. I believe that my style of Japanese garden, it reflects the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, and here's the bell. Let's ring the bell. There. I love that. My county where I live is the nursery capital of North America. Because of this, we have a whole plethora of plant materials that grow in our area because of the mild climate and the great growing conditions. So I have so many plants that I have brought in just because I'm a plantaholic, and so my garden reflects the biodiversity or the plant diversity that we have in our garden or in our area here in the Willamette Valley. And so I also, because we have the mountains, the high mountains that get up to 10, 12, 14,000 feet high in our area, and we have coastal areas. We have naturally occurring bonsai that grow in the cliffs and the rocks, clinging to cliffs along the coast and up in the mountains. We tend to prune in that style. And I do have a pine tree here that I've pruned in the Japanese Sukashi style, but most of my plants are pruned in a very naturalistic way, and that's what we here in the Northwest like. It's the Sukashi style. We're not so much into the Niwaki or the topiary, the sheared look, although I've got plants that are sheared, and eventually these beautiful variegated euonymus. And I will let them grow together and form one solid mass and shear them in a rounded shape so that they kind of look like hills in the background. And one thing I do have a lot of is I've got contrast, a lot of contrast between various colors. Here you have the yellows and the greens, the reds of the lace leaf maple, and the bright green of the Fatsia japonica, the Aurelia, and then you've got the rhododendrons. And then these conifers here, several different varieties in this little island. And so I have brought in elements. Here's the Karasensui, the dry stream bed element, no water. And I've got, of course, the lanterns and a lot of rocks. And so, and of course, we got a little bit of running water. Here is a collected species. This is my little alpine or mountain hemlock that I've pruned, that grew up in the mountains and was brought down. I bought it from a nursery. And here's a few of my quasi bonsai or Sukashi style pruned plants. There's my water feature, which I just redid. It was leaking, so I redid it so it wouldn't leak so much, and made it try to look as natural as possible. It's underneath my bedroom window, so we can hear the sound at night. And here's some other bonsai here on this little shelf behind my hot tub. And yeah, I am blessed. A couple years ago, they built these ugly apartments up here. And I looked down on what was once formerly a very private backyard. I had to build this screen so that I could barbecue on my back deck without having people staring down at me. And now I'm going to build another cedar, a screen out of cedar wood to block my hot tub so I can go out there and again have a little privacy. But I after visiting the Murakami garden, I said, okay, what is my style that I have here, since Japanese gardens can come in so many different styles? And I realized that, I'm going to come up with a name and my own style, because Japanese gardens, wherever you find them, reflect the style and the plant material in that area. Whether if you're in Florida or in Chile or Argentina or Albuquerque or Houston, where I visited Japanese gardens, or you're up in our area here in the Northwest, Oregon and Washington, or whether you're up in British Columbia, or whether you're on the East Coast in Florida, for example, different plant materials and different styles will inform and determine the type of Japanese garden. Not to mention the unique qualities, aspects, and tastes of the designer and the influences of the designer himself or herself. So because I'm influenced by the Pacific Northwest, by my dad's landscaping design work and the type of landscaping that we like here in the Northwest, I have come up with a term, and I'm calling it the Cascadia style of Japanese pruning and garden. It's what feels right here in the Pacific Northwest. And so I am initiating a new style as reflected in my own Japanese garden called the Cascadia, as per the Cascade Mountains, which run through Oregon and Washington. And up in the Cascade Mountains, you get into the 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 foot elevation, you see all kinds of natural occurring Sukashi, bonsai type plant materials with rocks and streams and flowing rivulets of water coming off the glaciers, out of mountain springs, off of snowfields. And that's basically what we like here in our area. That's the style that my clients like, and that's the style that often is reflected in the Japanese gardens in our area. So yeah, Cascadia style of Japanese garden. I hope you enjoyed this video of my garden as it evolves, as I learn and grow and become more familiar with Japanese gardens and the styles and the types and the different elements and aspects. And it's been a journey. It's been a place of exploration and learning and growing. Even, you know, with this garb that I am blessed to be able to be wearing, you know, it's enjoying the various cultures and the various things that God has given us on this earth, and enjoying different styles and the beautiful things that are out there to be discovered and cherished and savored. And needless to say, I'm a little bit of a philosopher, but this world is kind of a weird dumpster fire, and I get a lot of joy, a lot of weird things happening, wars and strife and contention and fighting in nations and between political parties and religious elements. And a Japanese garden, or any kind of a garden, but in my case a Japanese garden, is a place to kind of set that all aside, let the dust settle, take a deep breath. For me, I grab my Bible, I pray, I walk around and get in touch with the creation, my creation, but God's creation that I've brought in and shaping and forming to fit my artistic sensitivities and what makes me happy. And then it's a chance for me to get in touch with the earth, in touch with Him, in touch with myself. And yeah, I don't have a large area, but you don't need a large area for a Japanese garden or Japanese style garden or any garden. So I encourage you, go for it. Till next time, adios.